it's Kait.
That was your best Matthew McConaughey impression I've ever heard.
McConaughey?
Is that how you say it?
I think it's McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey.
Let me try. All right.
Is that what he says?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does kind of say that. Anyway, welcome to the Heart of Dating podcast. It's Matthew McConaughey here.
Sponsored by Lincoln Aviator. He's a Lincoln guy.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
That's the car I've been telling you I want.
I know. I mean, it's funny.
That
Kate's
we can't afford.
Kate will point out all these cars. Like, I would love this car. I'll never forget. Kate came home from vacation one time and she was like, I found this car that I really like. I think I want to get it. I'm like, cool. Like, it's going to be a Tahoe, maybe an Escalade, Tesla. She's like, no. I forgot what brand it was, but it looks like a Jeep, but it's not a Jeep. I'm like, okay. And she's like, it's kind of square. There's like white, nice rims. I'm like, okay. And she's like, oh, and I remember it might have been a Mercedes. I was like, oh, I know what you're talking about. She was like, you do? I was like, yeah, that's a G-Wagon. She was like, oh, amazing. And like looked it up and she's like, that's what it was. I'm like, do you know how much those cost? She's like, no. I'm like, okay.
Pretty penny.
Those are like $200,000 cars.
Whoopsie.
Yeah. And she's like, can I still have it?
I got a taste for the finer things in life, my dear.
She's like, can I still have it? I'm like, oh my goodness.
Anywho, this is our last episode of this in-between season of online dating. And then next week, we're kicking it off with season 13. We can't wait. And to end this season, we're going to be talking about ghosting, how to not ghost someone and how to handle ghosting if it does happen to you. Now, JJ, before we begin, and this was a solo episode that I did a few years ago, but can you just be honest? Have you ghosted?
Never.
That's a lie.
How do you know?
Because you've told me that you have.
Yeah, I've ghosted.
The truth will set you free.
You know what? And here's the funny thing. Now that I think about it, I don't know if I ever ghosted until I did online dating.
Oh, it was an online dating thing.
Maybe. Yeah. Part of me wants to say, I'm sure there was some point in time where I was immature enough and too scared to have honest conversations before that. Oh, you know what? I did ghost before that. Oh, now I really remember. I remember the first time I ghosted.
It's all coming back. It's all coming back
to me now. It was in high school. Kaylee, I'm so sorry. I was 16 years old.
Are you saying this because we might run into her in Franklin now that we?
No, we won't. She's over in Jackson.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, man, I remember it, and it was bad. Like, yeah. I feel so bad for her. I can totally see the beginning of that ghosting pattern that like plagued me for all my young adult years.
Indeed.
We had been talking for like 3-4 months. Really liked each other.
16?
She was my first kiss.
In the McDonald's parking lot?
Yep. And then literally from one day to the next, I just stopped talking to her.
Oh.
And then I saw her again like 3 or 4 months later and tried to pick it back up like nothing had happened.
Oh, JJ. Classic.
It was, move. I mean, man. And I didn't really even see like
And that just slaps different when you're 16. That really hurts.
Oh, yeah. And I and what's funny is when I tried to reach back out to her and re-talk to her, like, I didn't think I had done anything wrong.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah, it was bad. Well, she did not take me back, by the way. She like a way to go,
Kaylee. Job, Kaylee.
Yeah, she was like, I know my worth. That was not kosher.
Yeah. Well, so this episode, this is everyone's like, I feel like one of the most common like grievances in dating is ghosting. And it happens so much with online dating. So we're going to break it down, or I'm going to break it down today on this episode. And just really quick before we jump in, y'all should know that School of Dating, our summer cohort, is starting literally this next week. So if you want to join, you got to do it like as soon as you hear this episode, because otherwise the doors will be closed. You can go to joinschoolofdating.com. It's our 8-week intensive. We have like recently in the last month, we have kind of done some inventory on all the relationships that have come from this program and now marriages. And there's a lot.
I know they're rolling in like every week.
Because now we've been doing the program for 2 years. And so we are getting relationship after relationship testimonial. And we've had a few marriages now, engagements. It's so fun.
I know. We've had some people like they'll date someone who hasn't taken school dating and they're like, should I make it mandatory for them to take it as well? Like, we're like, I don't know. We're going to have to figure out some kind of system.
I know. It'd be great for everyone in School of Dating to just link up with each other.
I know.
Women. It's just so exciting. It makes me so thrilled. And if you're listening to this and the School of Dating doors are closed, you can join our First Dibs list. This First Dibs list, basically, you'll get notified about a month before the next program goes live. You'll get a special discount. And we've often sold out in the past. So that's why you should get on this list. So you can text the word First Dibs to 214-225-7772. And we'd love to have you. All right. Without further ado,
let's go.
All right, you guys, how do you turn someone down and how do you handle ghosting? Let's talk about it all. Let's first start with how do you turn someone down? Here's the thing about this, and I've talked about it before. One, you do not need to know that that person is your spouse, okay? So don't put so much pressure on it. And then secondly, you don't have to be crazy attracted to them to be able to say yes to a date. Now hear me out on both of these things. First of all, we already talked about it in the first episode of this mini series about how you can and should take off all the pressure in dating. And I really, really mean it, you guys. You do not need to know or get a word from God or a sign that this is your husband or wife before you go on a first date. You also don't have to ask every single person in your community before you say yes to just one date. This is rather an opportunity to learn about yourself, to grow in perspective, and to figure out what you're actually looking for, which many times we think we know, but when it comes to actually being in a relationship, sometimes it's very different. Sometimes we say, yes, I want a person who is kind, who loves God, who is very thoughtful. But then when we actually get into dating, we figure out why those things are important to us, or maybe we reprioritize other things based on what we experience in those dating situations. Now, another thing, I want to take this a step further, okay? The point that I said about you don't have to be crazy attracted to them, this is true. You do not have to want to make out with them in order to go on a date with them. This is so true. Okay. Attraction is multifaceted. And too often we base our desire to go on a date with someone just based on physical attraction, just based at a first glance. But the true levels of attraction are so much more than just physical attraction. It also includes attraction to their personality, attraction to them mentally and emotionally, and even attraction to them spiritually, which all of these things can be figured out and even developed when you spend time with a person, aka when you go on dates with the person. So here's the dealio with that. I say if you think that they seem to have just a level of good character in some capacity, and if you can find them objectively attractive in some way, then say yes to the date. It's not going to hurt you. In fact, everyone right now, I want to empower you, especially the ladies listening, say yes more. That's my challenge for you. Say yes more. And for many of you who say, well, I never go on dates. Okay, say yes more. Be more open. Keep your mind open. Don't just eliminate somebody because you don't think they're the hottest person you've ever seen. You guys, we have to be more open. I'm not saying attraction and physical attraction is not important. Again, it is important. It's just not the only level of attraction that matters.
All right, you guys, quick break today because I want to tell you about another podcast that I think you are going to love if you like the Heart of Dating podcast. I'm talking about Happy and Healthy by Janine Amapala. Let me tell you all, Janine is actually a good friend of me and JJ's, Janine and Caleb, and it has been so cool to see her journey from pre-podcast to now having a podcast and it being so wildly successful to then meeting Caleb, who, shout out, is also younger than Janine because we are cougars. Hello. And now Caleb is a part of Happy and Healthy as well. It's so cool. So y'all go check out Happy and Healthy, whether you're searching for advice, Christian content, or just a genuine conversation. This podcast will be sure to help you on your journey of becoming, wait for it, happier and healthier. Let's go. Join Janine to hear a candid conversation on topics from her personal experiences, dating, faith, health, trending topics, and so much more. She also brings on some awesome guests. She launches her episodes every single Tuesday, and every single episode is also on YouTube. So go check it out. Happy and Healthy podcast.
Maybe some of you are thinking, well, Kait, I'm busy, or Kait, I don't have the time to date that much, or Kait, dating that much is a waste of time. Remember what I said. Keep it to about 90 minutes. Keep your dates to a short amount of time. Don't commit to an entire 4-hour long dating extravaganza. No, you guys, keep it short and continue to have the mindset that dating is an amazing experience to keep growing, gaining perspective, and to also have fun. And guess what? This isn't just for my listeners in their 20s. This is also for my listeners in their 30s and listeners even older than that. You guys, this is for all of us. Now, another thing I want to encourage you about in the process of figuring out if you want to continue forward dating with someone or not, if you go on one date, I want to encourage you to try to at least give it 3 dates. Yep, that's what I said. Typically, I try to operate on this whole 3-day rule thing as much as I possibly can before I decide if it's a yes for me or if it's a no for me. I really try to do the 3-date rule. Now, of course, there are some exceptions to that, being that if on the first date I find out they're just not a Christian at all, and I didn't know that before, then yeah, maybe I will just tell them after that date, hey, I think we should just be friends. This was a lovely time. But for the most part, I try to give it more than one date. The reason being for that is because everyone is so different, and maybe the person on the first date was just really, really nervous. Or maybe they actually had a really bad day, so they weren't showing up as their best selves. You just never know. The first date is kind of a wash, in my opinion. You don't really learn all that much. I mean, you learn some things, but things happen. You're nervous. You're maybe a little awkward. We talked about it last time, but I at least give it to the second date, and I try to at least give it to 3 dates. And maybe something was just off the first time. You never know. There's a variety of things that can happen, but try to not eliminate somebody just because of one not so amazing date. Also, some people's personalities take some time to warm up and really come through. So that's why I also like to give it more than one date to really figure out, do I connect with this person on multiple levels? All right. Now let's say you do all of the above and then you decide after all of this that, you know what, I'm just really not interested in this person. Or maybe this friend that is asking you out, you've known for a while and you're just no romantic interest in them at all. Then, okay, let's talk about how do you actually turn them down. My main thing here is you need to be clear, honest, and intentional with your words and the way you do this. And I would also recommend that while you are in the beginning stages of dating, please try to do this in person if you can. So at the end of a date, if you're just like, I'm just really not feeling going on another date with this person, then I would really share that with them in real time. I know a lot of people cringe at that and it's difficult. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable, but again, this is a growing process and people appreciate transparency. They honestly do. And they appreciate it when you're kind about the transparency as well. Now, if it's after the date that you've processed it a little more, you've had time to think, and you're like, you know what, I just really don't think this is for me. Sometimes I do take this method because sometimes I'm not really sure in the moment and I need to kind of think about it a little more before I share where I really stand. Then I recommend at least doing it over the phone if you can. A lot of people will resort to texting, and I want to say, try to not text. The reason being is that so much can be missed in terms of intonation and your expression. Things get lost in translation. It's just so much better to at least first do it in person if you can. Next, do it over the phone. And very last resort, do it over a voice memo. So at least the person can hear your voice. But I recommend, do not do it over text. So how do you kindly tell that person you're not interested in them? This is kind of my process of what I would say. I would say, hey, X, whatever their name is, I just want to let you know I have had a really great time getting to know you. And I just want to thank you so much for taking me on some really incredible dates and asking me some amazing questions. I've had such a great time. And for me, I am all about clarity. And so because of that, I just want to share with you, I don't want to pursue anything romantic going forward. But if you're open to it, I'd really love to be friends because as I said, I really enjoyed you as a person and I'd love to still be your friend. Clear, honest, intentional. That is what I try to do. And most of the time, I genuinely do enjoy hanging out with the people that I'm going on dates with. So that's why I'm so affirming. Also, words of affirmation is my favorite love language and it's also my gift. So I'm usually pretty affirming in my letting down of somebody. You can be more straightforward, whatever works for you. But I'm usually clear. I do not want to pursue anything romantically going forward, but I'd love to be friends. So the thing about this is if you are being clear, honest, and intentional, you can't control how they receive that. And of course, they might be bummed in the moment, and that's okay. But there's also a chance they might be feeling the exact same way. And then after you do all of this, here's the deal. It does not have to be weird. It doesn't. And it also does not mean you cannot be friends with them or that you have to avoid them now, especially at your church community. If it's getting awkward the next time you see them, it might be because you're the one that's making it awkward, okay? If you have only been on a few dates with that person, there is no reason why you can't still see them at church, interact with them, or even still be friends with them. Now, I understand if it's a serious relationship, that would be more tender and it would be handled differently. But we are talking about the beginning stage of dating here, just going on a few dates with someone. You can be friends with that person, especially you guys, if you didn't kiss or do anything physical in that nature, there is no reason why you can't be friends with that person. Another thing I want to encourage you when you are turning someone down or ending it with them, if you genuinely thought they're a really good person, I want to empower you to pay it forward with your recommendations. Yep. This is something I've actually done quite a few times. So if you went out with them and if you feel like they're a really good person, but not a fit for you, then connect them with someone you know. If they're okay with it, obviously. When I've asked guys in the past that I've been on dates with and I've said, you're really incredible. I am not feeling anything romantically moving forward, but I'd love to be your friend. And if you're open to it, I actually have a really awesome friend that I think you might like. I'd love to set you up with her if you'd be open to that. Again, you do it in the moment, or maybe you think about it and you do it later on. But I love paying it forward with recommendations because, hey, if this is not my husband, it's someone else's husband. And we're all in the business of trying to get married over here. So why don't we pay it forward? All right, lastly, I want to handle the topic quickly that is truly the bane of my existence when it comes to dating. And I'm sure it's a bane of many of your existences as well. That topic is dun dun dun. Ghosting. Oh. Friends, please, please, please just do me a favor and never ghost someone. Will you just never ghost someone? I really love the definition of ghosting from Urban Dictionary. It says, ghosting is the act of suddenly ceasing all communication with someone the subject is dating but no longer wishes to date. This is done in the hopes that the ghostee will just get the hint and leave the subject alone, as opposed to the subject simply telling them that he or she is no longer interested. Ghosting is not specific to a certain gender and is closely related to the subject's maturity and communication skills. Many attempt to justify ghosting as a way to cease dating the ghostee without hurting their feelings, but it in fact proves the subject is thinking more of themselves, as ghosting often creates more confusion for the ghostee than if the subject kindly stated how they felt. You guys, please note a few things from the above. Ghosting is closely tied to the subject's maturity level. Yep. And also, ghosting is more about the ghoster actually being protected and being selfishly not wanting to have that conversation. We try to justify it by saying, oh, but I don't want to hurt their feelings. You guys, that's a codependent statement right there. If you are being kind, clear, and intentional with the way you're voicing things, then you can't control if that person is upset. You did nothing wrong. And so don't tell me that it's because you are afraid of it being awkward, you're afraid of hurting their feelings. That's just selfishness cloaked with a very false sense of I'm trying to protect someone else. You do not need to protect someone else from the way they might feel about you sharing that you're not interested in them. So please do me a favor. Don't ghost. Don't be a part of the generation that we just take the easy way out because we're so digital and we don't have to face people anymore. You guys, don't ghost. We need to get away from the culture of ghosting. And friends, if you know somebody who is ghosting someone, then you need to call them out. I just want to have accountability across the board. I had a guy friend tell me once, and I was like, well, how did you end that situation with that girl that you were no longer interested in? He was like, I didn't say anything. And I was like, so you ghosted her? He was like, yeah. And I was like, no, this is not going to happen. You need to message her, even if it's been a while, and apologize for that because that simply is not okay. You need to do things differently. I've had coaching clients of mine that I've had to encourage to do the same thing. You guys, we just need to be a better culture that has respect and honor for one another. And ghosting is not respectful. It's not honoring to the other person. And I think something really big that we need to try to do in our dating realm, in our dating culture, is really seek to leave a person better than we found them. And by ghosting, we are absolutely not doing that. So please do not ghost. And if someone is ghosting you, or if you know someone that's ghosting, please call them out. That's just really, we need to be a culture of accountability. Okay. That is the ghosting thing. I better not find out that people in our community are ghosting. Y'all need to not be ghosting. Okay. Thank you very much. Off the pedestal of ghosting. So that is it, you guys. That is how to turn someone down lovingly and also how to handle ghosting. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation and this mini series. The Heart of Dating podcast is created by Kait and JJ Tomlin. Shout out to our epic audio and video editor, Scott Caro. We have an amazing Heart of Dating team who helps bring this show to you each week. I want to shout out Kelsey Napier, our Heart of Dating digital marketing coordinator, and Elena Gibson, our brand and community manager. We couldn't do it without them. Now, if you guys have never ranked us or reviewed us on iTunes or Spotify, would you consider doing that? It would mean so much because our podcast can get more discovered and more people can learn how to better date as Christians. Don't we all want that? We launch our podcast each and every week on Wednesdays, so we will see you next week.